All right, I'll call this meeting in order. It is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. It's 2 o'clock, and we're here to discuss the GEM grant. And I will turn it over to Commissioner Dose or...
Not me.
Okay, well, I'll just recap for the public that last year or so, last March, I think, we accepted a GEM grant for about $50,000 with a match of about 34.
We were going to put in 35.
35 in kind and parts to try and convert one of our FEMA properties into a parking lot. Deadline's kind of coming up on that to make some decisions. I'm hearing from the public like 10-1 that people don't understand or accept the parking lot idea as a valid solution yet at this point. And I'm also concerned that we're no longer in a position to be making a match with Public Works that we were a year ago before we had this potential shortage in SRS funds, etc. So I would like to suggest that the board consider, and I don't know the proper terminology, but giving the grant back before we owe it, before we spend some of it to build a parking lot that some people don't want, or to spend some of it and then have to match with our county funds. I think we would be better off to just consider giving it back for now and seeking more public input on a solution that meets more people's needs than the current solution.
I would agree.
I definitely agree with that, especially with the SRS.
And one of the things I think we need to look at is possibly the Forest Service and other state agencies to be putting something like this in instead of putting it on the county to do this, because really all that area up there is Forest Service. And I think,
And we already are taking on the river bends
yep.
up there as county.
So we need to probably work with those folks to see if we can find a better solution than, because then we'd be tasked at having to take care of it if we...
Right. Yeah, you got to think future maintenance and, the employment there to maintain it.
Well, I think we all agree we have a problem up the river, especially in the summer. I don't think that the majority of people in the county agree on the solution. And I've heard some ranting and raving as well as some logical problems with both sides of the issue. I think we need more time to come up with a solution that meets most people's needs. And I just am concerned about the match at this point. I would like to hear from our grant lady on what kind of trouble do we get into if we move to give it back.
So it was a contract, and the commissioners did sign a resolution supporting this. We did do a lot of footwork behind this. There are studies that were done. There was community input through the watershed advisory groups, and this is a solution, and it was a widely accepted solution. They didn't specifically say that, but we also went through and vetted multiple county properties. So this is, a listing of all the properties. We figured out what those were. We made sure that everything was good with FEMA, and the consensus is there has to be parking, there needs to be vault toilets, there needs to be signage, and so this was meant to address all of those things in addition to economic development. So it's also opens the doors for revenue for the county, because you can charge fees, you can charge concessioners fees for people to set up there. You can, those kind of things that make it self-sustaining in those types of things. It also has the safety aspect where the rigs aren't hanging off the edge of the river anymore because they're parking wherever and tearing down Jessica's signs that she has to replace consistently. It also, in conversations with Forest Service and others, it would give the sign, so a sign is a part of that grant, that puts some verbiage in there that they felt they now had teeth because it could be posted and not in a sign that's easily removed. Where they could do more enforcement because it is posted somewhere. So those are the things that, led us to this. It wasn't just a willy-nilly. It was something we put together over a long time, and there was the RATS team that put together the Watershed Advisory Group. There were already pre-meetings that were done through FORC. So we took all of that and put it together. It was well vetted before we did it. We turned away 2 or 3 others. The problem with going with some of the other federal money for, properties is that that's very hard. We have one right now, the 319 grant, but that's all about the water quality. And again, it leads back to this. This is that property that, because of McPhee Gulch, there's nutrient loading and sediment concerns that open it up to make it very viable. It was that landing point for all the recreational district or area that could be done. It is a revenue generator for that. And I completely understand the concerns with Jessica. That's just my, kind of the background on this. My concerns is we have a really good reputation, and this late in the game, when a resolution was signed turning back a grant, is kind of a black mark. So it is up to you guys. You are the ones who will make the decision. That's just my opinions.
And Colleen, how much to date has been expended on this project?
Let's see, just got a bill from Jim for about 3,700.
So if we give this back, we're going to have to eat that 3,700 out of county funds. If we continue on, then we're going to have to come up with the match.
Come up with a match, and then $50,000 is not going to. It wouldn't pay for the vault toilet and the.
No, because that was phase 2.
Yeah.
Right now, what it
so
is getting that approach ready,
get more grants.
Get the approach ready, get the fencing around it so it could be enclosed off, get lighting, signage, and so it was ready to use. The vault toilets for the next stage in that, and that's where the 319 comes in, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. That will put the vault toilets in. Different kind of gating systems, lighting in a different manner. It just opens those doors.
Now, did we do a anything on the speed limit signs there? Was there anything done, whether that area would have impacted,
So we didn't do anything like as in-depth as a speed study. A speed study was done back in 2019 or 2020, I would have to look back, that did include that section of roadway. For the usage that was already established, those speed limits were suitable. I mean, they moved them a little bit, but those were deemed suitable. Now, as far as speed limits for, additional usage, we haven't done an official speed study, but it was deemed that it looked like we would be okay to go without a turn bay. We had engineering look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it just kind of for me to make sure. So when we were talking about the grant match of the 35,000, that was people, equipment, and materials.
Labor, equipment, and materials. I think about 17,000 would have been materials from our stock. The rest would have been matched with labor and equipment.
Yeah, and right now you guys are on the Moon Pass deal, right? Are you guys doing
actively working on Moon Pass? Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, how would we, we got 30, is it 30 days?
No.
So
this construction season.
So when earlier I was a little mistaken when Colleen says we need to know by the end of May, I was thinking we had to be done. We have to be done by the end of this construction season, but we needed to know by the end of the month, basically next month, if we were going to continue with this grant or that type of a thing. So I was a little bit mistaken when Colleen contacted me that we needed to have construction finished by the end of next month.
Commerce was just asking for an update to make sure that they were concerned because they hadn't heard anything, because we did put everything on hold, and that was the update that I did at the end of the year, is that Moon Pass had put this project on hold because that was the priority. And so otherwise it would have been done last year. So Jerry Miller from Commerce just reached out and said, what you got going on? How's it going? I need to know right away so that we know what's going on with this, and we know that you're on track for it. And at that time, we were on track. The grant runs through April of 26, but the construction doesn't go through that far because we can't do construction in the winter or the spring. So.
Yeah, because it would require the paving of the approach.
It would be this construction season if it stays.
And this one I haven't been as in the know, because it's not like a road department grant that, I had just applied for myself. So it's been some communication with some different departments. And so that's where I was mistaken on the actual deadline for construction to be finished.
And then we'd have to have, in order to even do this, we'd have to have a public hearing to bring the public in. Or we'd have to have a notice for the public that we were going to go through with it.
This is a state grant. It's Idaho Department of Commerce.
But we'd want to give the public a chance to come in
And comment.
and comment.
Definitely.
Yeah, we want the public.
Because I think two things are true right now. I still think a parking lot is a part of the solution. From what I've heard in the last year, the majority of people who are writing or calling disagree. And so I just think we're going to need more time to either educate the public and get consensus or come up with some other, evidence for other solutions. But I think to just try to go forward now, and again, my concern is partly is this match. I hate to see us spending money when we are potentially losing our SRS funds.
Yeah.
I think that's one of my.
Okay. I'll take some heat. The grant was partly my idea. I encouraged in this solution. I still think it's ultimately part of the solution. I just am not sure about the timing.
Okay. All right. Well, I would entertain a motion.
It pains me.
But I understand, but we've got different circumstances.
I would move that under the current circumstances that we not expend the funds, any further funds, that we give the money back and try to survive the black eye and figure out a different way to re-engage with the public. And
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
I
Okay. Motion carries.
And I do want to thank our grants administrator because I know she put a lot of work into this. Several of us did in the research phase, and we have had several public meetings, like she pointed out. But there's work to be done.
Yeah. Okay.
So my suggestion is that you run this by Ben and make sure what kind of legal ramifications, because it is a contract, what might be coming up from that. And then from there, I would request a formal letter terminating the contract and returning the grant funding. It's a reimbursement grant, but basically terminating the contract with Idaho Commerce. And
Why don't you get with Ben and ask him about that? You're a grants person, okay?
I need that to come from you guys because you're the governing body.
We just said that we were going to do it. So go check with Ben, okay?
Well, I'll have him run something, write something up to run by you guys.
Okay.
Because you'll have to sign it.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.